Hello, and welcome back to The Myth Within. I'm Dr. Tom, and I'm really grateful that you joined me here today. I wanted to say it's been a couple days since I last recorded, and I'm really excited to be here back today in order to give you another segment of The Myth Within. Today, we're going to focus on a quote from Frederick Douglass that I think fits in well with the lack of education Daedalus was teaching his son Icarus as it related to assuming responsibility and moving on with the work that needs to get done in order to create the movement towards one's dreams as being a possibility. In the quote from Frederick Douglass, he states, "The lesson taught at this point by human experience is simply this, that the man who will get up will be helped up, and the man who will not get up will be allowed to stay down. Personal independence is a virtue, and it is the soul out of which comes the sturdiest manhood. But there can be no independence without a large share of self-dependence, and this virtue cannot be bestowed. It must be developed from within." What a powerful quote from Frederick Douglass, who within his life actually was a friend of President Abraham Lincoln. And in here we learn the need for men to teach that level of self-dependence. Far too often I see a level of dependence upon others, and this really is excused almost at a societal level these days as creating this means of which people feel this forced sense of helplessness, that they can't help themselves or they feel hopeless to begin helping themselves. And in essence, what we're looking at here is the need to teach a person how to fish versus begging for fish to be put upon their plate. Because what happens when a generation, any generation, begs for the fish, and this is common amongst a childhood psyche. They beg for things to be given to them, and the more that they get, the more that they take, and the more that they want, and the more that's given, the more it becomes a vicious cycle. And so what Frederick Douglass is alluding to here is really the person that has more will be given more, just as the biblical verse says, and the person that has nothing will be left with nothing. In Douglass's words, he who will get up will be helped up, and the man who will not get up will be allowed to stay down. How true is this? As individuals are picking themselves up and moving towards greater heights to chase their dreams, they're the ones who are putting the action and the work into what needs to occur in order to make whatever dream they have become a reality. The people that talk about it or turn to individuals as a means of giving them the key to obtain this unknown knowledge, let's say, although it's very known, really have a disadvantage because they aren't in the act of acting. They aren't acting upon the law of attracting what it is they seek. And so, in essence, they are dependent upon others to try and give them some inkling or some leftover bread of knowledge that may boast them into this world of action, simply missing the fact that the law of attraction must create the means by which we act upon that which we seek. Now, the capacity to attract means we must first act, and we must be independent. That action must be independent from the mentors that we search for as a means to provide the lessons that are needed to navigate these steps one must go through to attain a dream. If one wishes to become an adult, begin to look up to the adults in your life. If one wishes to become a psychologist, find a psychologist to look up to in your life. If one wishes to become a doctor, find a doctor that can help move you towards that dream, that vision. What does it take to become that person? It's the same in any profession. If one wishes to become a stockbroker, find a stockbroker. A cop, find a police officer. If one wants to become a military officer, hang out at the recruiting centers. Find out what it means to enact these things in your life. There can't be independence, i.e., I've become this person, without first becoming self-reliant, or as what Frederick Douglass says, self-dependent upon the strengths that you have, even the weaknesses that you have that could drive you to become the person you want to be. As this relates to our myth, the myth of Daedalus, Daedalus did not teach the lessons to his son that would be needed to sustain life independently. His life was still dependent upon his father's, and not teaching the patience and the adherence to the skills needed to create the elements of the escape that they underwent. Daedalus created a degree of dependency upon his son, Icarus. And so when Icarus went to spread his wings for the first time, there was absolutely no grounding of self that he had to fall upon, and so he crashed into the waves. But there can be no independence without a large share of self-dependence, and this virtue cannot be bestowed. Daedalus could never bestow that upon his son. Icarus had to learn it for himself in a way we're all Icarus as we learn to fly during our first ascents. But it's in those crashes that we create what Frederick Douglass said, what must be developed within, that self-dependence. Now, this brings us to an ideal of, is this a failure or is this success? In the myth of Daedalus, we see that Icarus's flight of fancy was a failure, and we will go more into the myth of Daedalus and its effects on his father in a later segment. But what happens in these ascents and descents, when we learn to descend, we begin to find the gold that's present to allow our ascent to success to be created. I look forward to your comments and any questions you may have. And until next time, I really thank you for joining me here today. Once again, my friends, namaste, and may blessings find you as you advance confidently in the direction of your dreams. Thank you.